Welcome to the Paul Spradley Show, a show dedicated to real strategies from real people practicing real leadership in diverse and inclusive cultures. And now here's your host, CEO of the diversity training firm, the Care-Based Leadership Collaborative, Dr. Paul David Spradley.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Would you be mad if I started by singing It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood? That's just how I feel sometimes, like it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Thanks for listening to the Paul Spradley Show. My guest today is Mr. Donnie Gray III. I've known members of Donnie's family for years, but recently met Donnie when I heard him tell his incredible story at the PACT Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable Conference, locally known as CEIR. Donnie currently serves as the Customer Relations Manager for P&W BMW, and he genuinely just has incredible energy. Donnie, thank you for being on the show, man.
Thank you, Rose. It's definitely a blessing and an honor, man.
Yeah, so listen, my first question, have you ever done any male modeling?
No.
You've got that look.
I guess I would say, I guess I male model just on a natural pose. You
right.
know, a lot of people always ask me, you should try out for modeling, but something I never just have done.
Like you just walk around Pittsburgh and like think for a second and look up in your blazer and like, oh, this guy looks like a male model, man.
I tell everybody all the time, honestly, man, it's confidence, man.
Yeah.
I tell anybody they can be who they are as long as they're confident. You know
right.
what I mean? People always say, oh, it's about name brand things. It's not, man. You can have something that's off name brand, but you make it look good and you market it. And it's, wow, people are like, I never even knew that. Until you realize that, then
yeah.
you know, you're going to be lost.
Where'd your confidence come from?
I guess you could say, I would just say as a kid, just me, I guess you would say as a class clown, I was just always confident, just, you know, making jokes. Class clown in a good way. But honestly,
said no teacher. Models. There's never a single teacher that said a class clown in a good way. I was a class clown, right? I was a class clown too, and they liked me.
Yeah. And I would just say just my role models, my father, and just certain figures that was in my life, things of that sort. So it's just a natural, I feel, as the.
Okay, so you started, you grew up, you were a class clown, you liked to talk and whatnot in class, and that gave you, what did you learn about yourself? Because you said you had confidence at an early age.
That I had a unique gift that I could connect with souls. Being raised up in a magnet program, being mixed with diversity young, gave me different walks of life for me and my siblings. So when I can see I can connect with someone with a laugh or a smile, or me just being silly, or, you know, put into discipline, like, hey, you need to.
Right.
It was just like, oh, wow, I'm connecting with people. And even though I was like a class clown, my teachers still had favor in me, and they like loved me. You know what I mean? Like, could they seen the greatness within me? Wow. And so that's where I am now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about so we're going to dive into your story. You got an incredible story. Talk about Donnie at 11, 12, 13 years old, and what happened sort of in that space.
So I would say me as a young kid, I was rambunctious. I loved the ladies, but also I was a hard head. And my father and my mom always told me, especially my father, son, that at the end of the day, you're going to be held accountable for all your actions. And never really realized that when you're under the shelter of your parents because you're not on your own yet. Until you're actually on your own and you have to own responsibility. So my age as a kid, I would run around, you know, outside having fun, dealing with girls, but I would do mischievous things and things that weren't right.
Okay.
And just be a fool with it. But I always knew I had a calling on my life, just the way I just connect with people and the way I can reach someone that someone else can't reach. I just knew it was a calling, but I didn't know how I was going to get there or where I was going to get there.
So what happened next?
High school was good. Barely graduated, but graduated with, you know, good grades, but made it there. Didn't know where I wanted to go. At that time, just dealing with girls and dealing with the streets and different things like that, and friends that dealt with the streets. I had a drug problem. I was a marijuana head. I was just everything of the world. And so I was going to Job Corps. I was blessed to be introduced to Job Corps. And instead of me taking the way of a trade, I took the way of the CCAC program. And I always tell people nowadays, young souls, hey, if you don't know where you're going in life, I'm firmly behind Job Corps. Job Corps is a great program, so many benefits. So I was going to CCAC for 2 years. Studying criminal justice, because that heart, I love detective work, like, you know, just putting pieces together. Right. And I was doing that for 2 years, and in a couple semesters, I was just failing. And, you know, I was almost on my 2 years up, and they were letting me know, hey, if you don't get it together, you'll fail. Nor was I paying attention. I just wanted to skip class and mess with girls, smoke weed, just, you know, try the life of the party, but it wasn't where it needed to be, nor was I applying myself to where it needed to be. So being under my parents' roof, you know, I took that for advantage in different ways. And then I started dealing more with selling drugs and working a full-time job. So I was dealing marijuana, and I thought I was living right because I was helping a drug addict. I was helping myself smoke weed and make money.
Wow.
And I thought I was living.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anything I wanted to do, but there was no control of me. My parents stopped saying, putting the pressure on me and saying, I'm just gonna let God deal with you. You're going to answer to God and you're going to answer to your actions. And one day I made a wrong move, but it was a wrong move for His glory in 2012. And just knowing different people in different areas and different counties, I was an old-time friend of high school reached out to me and said, hey, my boyfriend's looking for marijuana in Center County. That's where Penn State is. And something in my spirit always told me, don't go that move. Just don't do it. You don't need to do none of this. But something told me something's iffy about this. So I ended up, remember it was after the NBA All-Star Championship and the Miami Heat and LeBron and them winning. And a friend of mine took a trip the next day. And I remember the whole time on my way to State College, there was different signs and different examples of something's not right. State troopers on the side lot. But I was so focused on the wrong thing, it was just blind to me. It was just like, it didn't matter. I'm going to go get this money, might smoke some weed, mind some girls, stuff of that sort. Nothing that made sense or didn't matter at all.
Or it did make sense. So in your framework at that time, it made sense.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Correct. And then next thing you know, when we meet, this confidential informant set me up. So basically, they have a book full of students that they catch with drugs, and these are students that their parents pay for this prestigious school. So instead of them doing time, they squeeze them. Hey, if you give up somebody, your case is gone. So this guy that I met through a girl that was her boyfriend, he met with him, but something was fishy because as soon as we went up there, just things weren't adding up how it was supposed to be. And I remember the guy briefly got in the car and he said, Steph, go into my apartment, let's just pull on the side of the road. And when I pulled on the side of the road, I popped the trunk. And I went to go grab what I was supposed to, marijuana at the time. And next thing you know, before I stepped my foot into the driver's side, no lie to you, 20 undercovers, state colleges, everything came out with guns, like that fast. And honest to truth, as I tell you today, from the bottom of my heart, I knew right there and then that God, this is nothing but God, and God has ordained this. So when I got handcuffs on me, I literally sat in the back of the police car and I just said, God, I start repenting in the midst of my mess. I just said, God, I know where I'm at right now. You have me, and I know everything that I'm going to own up to it, and I know it's going to work out for your good. And literally, I didn't think about nothing else but just basically, okay, God, I know you're working it out, and it's for your good, and I'm just going to go on the path that you have, and no matter what comes my way. And throughout my...
How were you feeling, though, right? Like, so you said you had 20...
I was nervous.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're a young man,
nervous.
you're 20...
I thought it was a Fed case. The way they jumped out, I'm like, whoa. But come to find out down the road in my incarceration, this is what they do in college towns. They fry fish, this is what they do. This is what the cops do. They come out, and this is how they make their money off of, locking kids up, teach them a lesson, and move them forward, make an example of yourselves, especially in Center County, Pennsylvania. And from there on, I was like, oh, snap. I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I just know, like, this is big work. And as me and my co-defendant at the time was driving away, the guy that was with us hopped in the black SUV, and he drove away. And that's when pieces start revealing itself, And then that's when I went to the holding cell, and I was there all day, and they were trying to get the story out, and they were following me off of Facebook, social media. That's why I tell people, social media is a nasty bean if you're not using it for the right platform. If you're using these young guys out here or young adults trying to do things that's corruptive, they're going to catch you at the end of the day.
Wow.
And basically, he wrote my whole affidavit. He read the whole me out from Facebook, my old name, all this other stuff. The detective was doing all this. And basically, I'm a person that always, learn to own my mistakes. So my co-defendant had nothing to do with it. I owned it, and one thing I remember my dad, when they called him, my dad, was a reinforcer. He said, no, let my son stay in there. He had to learn from that. And that helped me, because it wasn't like a safe route out. It was, son, time now you need to realize what's going to transpire in your life, and these are the situations that happen and the repercussions. And it humbled me. And I remember in my, as I was waiting for my preliminary hearing, that whole week, God transformed my life. Because it was a full repentance. It was a broken heart, and I knew I was hurt. And there were so many masks I was different wearing, because even though I could connect with people, I was still wearing masks like this was made for me. People always used to tell me, like, yo, bro, I don't know what you're going to do in life, but you have a gift. I don't know if you're going to sell cell phones at the time, or if you're going to be, this or that, but I knew God had a greater calling dealing with people. And I would say from 2012 all the way up to now, God has completely restored my life and changed it around for the better. That I'd be able to pass the baton to souls that were in my story and transform them lives. So God basically transformed my lives in my 6-month incarceration. Everything that the enemy thought that they were going to take off of me, as far as my car, my cell phone, God restored it plentyfold. Wow. My lawyer told me in my holding cell on one of the days I thought I was going to get out of jail, And he told my father, to my parents, he told me as well. He said, well, Donnie, I got good news for you. You just got to do 16 more days. But they're probably not going to let you out today, but I will let you know this, that you will never be employed. You ought to be self-employed the rest of your life due to you being a felon.
Wow.
And I never accepted that, in my mind. And when my dad told me that information, we connected on my visit. I was like, yeah, Dad. My dad fully believes, son, God's going to turn it all the way around as he's doing right now. And within the court system and within my incarceration, I found favor with the CEOs. I found favor with the wardens. And the crazy thing is I had to protect myself from the wardens because it was a racist correctional facility. But it was for the better. And it put me in places that where other inmates couldn't be, dealing with my work release and a place for me to, at my last 2 months of being let out, I was able to go to a place, it was work release, and I was able to connect with souls out in the real world. But I came to full repentance, and God just dealt with me those 6 months. And it was just, from there, turned around. But even when I came home, I was still fighting enemies, but I would stay on the path that he has for me, just knowing, God, you're putting me in places that I'll never expect with me being a convicted felon, and things are just working out for his good.
So before we get to this second part, because there's so much to unpack, man.
Yeah,
like
man.
It's such it's such a good story, because I just want you to kind of focus and slow down on a few of the moments, right? Because I think it's in those moments that life lessons are learned. I think it's in those moments that you shift. It's in those moments. So you talked about the moment when they pulled you out of the car.
Yeah.
There's a moment when you realize that your dad said he needs to go through this. And that as a father, that's both, that has to hurt, but also like he had a understanding of what this meant for you. Was there anything that you were feeling in that moment?
I'd say it was fear, because I didn't know how it was going to turn out. But it was humbling as well, and it was a respect of what my father's word was and knowing my personal relationship with Christ. So it was a bit bittersweet moment, knowing, okay, God, don't know what's going to transform, but I know it's for your glory. So that was the real impact, and that's what kept me through my incarceration.
Did you expect to get caught? So I'm asking because
sooner or later.
Okay.
Sooner or later. Too many things were adding up. I remember the week before I took this trip at my job at the time, someone came in that I was working with. It was like, there's K9s walking around your whole vehicle. And that was another wake-up call. So I had all these wake-up calls that even in the midst of it all, God was still showing you flags, but it just wasn't registering.
Well, and I'm saying, I think I'm asking from it seems like you've always been grounded in your faith. And what you were doing sort of it's a juxtaposition of what you believe, right? And so at some point it's kind of like, I'm living this way, but I'm also living this way, and they can't coexist forever.
Correct.
And you had this realization at some point. So what were you thinking about? You had a week when you were being held, and then you were in jail for 6 months. That's a long time.
Yeah.
What went through your mind in that space?
That space was just honestly full repentance, just laying it out. Like, God, the old me was just like, it was like almost me coming out of a skin. So it was just like, God, I want to live for you. I want to live for what you have for me so you can exalt me to your glory. It was just me being done with it. And it was just me realizing that, God, you do have a will for my life. And this is a pause that you have me on.
What is, and I'm trying to pull out that space that you said, I was done with it. That's not the kind of thing that most people, that's not a switch, right? Or sometimes it is a switch. Sometimes you have to have this, you have to be on the ground before you can be rolled over and look up, right? And so did you process this as, like everything in my life up to this point has been a facade? Like, how were you processing yourself? What were you thinking about yourself, your journey to this point, and your future as it related to who Donnie Gray was?
I would say what I was processing, so it was like slow-mo. So in the midst of every step throughout the whole incarceration, I was slowly processing that, this is for the will of God, honestly, just the will of God. You are working this out, and you're working on me. So just removing all facades, all masks that we have. And basically I was growing with it, because it was such an emotional state as well, as far as me connecting with God on one-on-one. So basically it was healing, but at the same time it was cutting off any lashes and anything that I had stronghold hold me back to where I am now. You mean when I was incarcerated, like just letting it go. There was letters that I was declining just because I wanted to be fully just on focus on my relationship with Christ. So it was just me realizing through it each step and seeing if I heard about this court date or if this happened with the warden or the CO. And it was just me realizing how God was moving even in the midst of my incarceration, that for his glory. And it was just like things were adding up. Son, I'm in the midst of this, but understand, this is what's coming for you.
So you talked about, you used the word adding up, right? Mm-hmm. So at one point on the front end, you said things weren't adding up, right? Mm-hmm. Like you had these like signs, but when you're in this space, your language is shifting. So things are starting to add up now.
Correct, disconnect. So basically, I was away from everyone.
Right.
I was up in Center County, so there was no connection to anyone on the outside besides phone calls with my family. And then as my co-defendant went on his way, because he had nothing to do with it, so a week after that, once he had his preliminary, they dropped the charges with him. So it was just me and God and our time together and any inmates that were up there. But things were just falling off, just dropping off. And there would be different trials and tribulations even in the midst of my incarceration with, different cellmates or a CEO. But I would pause in the middle of this and just say, God, I give it to you. Like, I'm not going to deal with this. I know it's in your hands. And it's just, every time something would happen, it was a milestone, and he would just reveal to me more, son, this is a process that you're in, and this is where I'm going to go bring you out of it.
When I often tell sort of my story about my struggle spaces, one of the things that sometimes people connect with is I have so much practice being this other person, wearing this mask, that there might be someone listening to you and they're saying, it doesn't make sense for me that he just is saying, I'm giving it over to God. Like, was there something else that happened? And now we're speaking to the person who recognizes that they have a struggle space, that they're wearing a mask. What advice are you giving that person, right? Like in their growth space, like, because it's, for some folks, it is a switch. They have a moment. For others, they need a process. They need to understand, like, what does it mean to stay in that process with a direction?
It basically went down to my foundation as well, too. Always, true to yourself. Bottom line, like, knowing it, like, when we grew up, as you grew up as a child, like, I hope people realize that they have gifts, and if it's not always promote people, let them know their gifts to confirm them as well, just as a blessing to them and knowing people. So when you grow up as a kid, you were raised with different morals and things of that sort. So my moral always knew that my foundation was into him, but I was true to my, try to be true to yourself. So if I knew that the streets weren't for me, like drug dealing and things of that sort, I would come back to the way I was raised. I was raised in the church, and I was raised as a respectful human being. And as you realize where you come from in this moment of space and isolation when you're incarcerated, you just narrow it. I feel as though you just go back to what your foundation was, and you align yourself completely, what you believe in. So I believe in God, so I align myself with God, and basically I just realized, God, you created me for a reason. The path that I was going wasn't made for it, nor the path that someone may be going is not made for it. And be true to him, but be true to yourself. And I feel as though when you are in alignment with God and being who you are, he will exalt you more to grow to who you need to be through the trials and tribulations.
What's the message from, let's say I'm just released from, I just served 6 months in jail.
Yeah.
I don't believe in God. I didn't have a strong family foundation growing up. And I need somebody to encourage me that I shouldn't go back to doing that thing that I've got so much practice. I'm really good at selling drugs. I'm really good at this other thing. What's your message to that person?
My message to that person is surely, so all of us are born with gifts. So the same time and the time that you put into, dealing in the streets, it's about, I would say, that person reaches out, or someone will reach out to that person and someone will sharpen your gifts. Someone take liking, or a big brother or a big sister, but I would say continue to persevere and continue to do things that you never thought you would do. So say if your gift is the same as mine, is it may be you're a natural born hustler. So my story is me being a natural born hustler, I already have a connection with people, and I also, will put my thought into something mischievous, or maybe try to get over someone in my old life, but put that time and that thought into something that's creative and constructive.
Steve.
So when I was in the car, going into the second part, I'm in the car dealership business. So at the same time, at the end of the day, it's car dealership business, whether it's different service or sales or what I'm in, collision manager, at the end of the day, it's a form of connection, relationship, first and foremost. But at the same time, in the back end is sales. biggest thing is keep that relationship. But at the same time, as you are in sales, behind the scenes, you're cultivating your natural gift to something that's beneficial, something that you're building a relationship, and basically you're sharpening up your gifts. If you teach someone how to fish, and they already know how to fish, but show them a different way of fishing with a different fishing pole, you can fish anywhere. So when you already have the foundations and the different gifts that you were born with, whether it might be talking to someone or something with your crafts, with your hands, or connecting with someone on the level that someone else can connect, use that gift for the glory that you guys can both benefit and build a relationship. And you persevere.
That's dope. That's awesome, man. So you've done some, when you were incarcerated, you had a hard time accepting that you weren't going to be able to work because that's what someone said, right?
Yeah,
like you're not going to be able, and you said, it's not for me.
Yeah.
And then you started to sort of build this next phase of your life. Talk about your transition out and what was motivating you in those spaces.
So when my lawyer broke the news to me, and we were at this court day, and he basically told me, hey Donnie, unfortunately you're going to leave a convicted felon. I'm a convicted felon. Don't ever let that hold me because it doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't define you either.
No, it doesn't define me at all. Correct.
Yep.
So you say you're a convicted felon, and unfortunately, when you being a convicted felon, you may have to be self-employed the rest of your life. And I didn't really accept that at all, nor did I didn't accept it at all. I just said, okay, this is the time being, this is what's coming from man. Man has no power, but this is what's coming from him. But I respected him because he did a great job at the same time. So as I was transitioning on my last, I believe, 60 days of jail, I knew when I got out, first of all, I wasn't going back to where I was going to do. Bottom line, throughout this whole experience, no, this is not for me. I'm not doing this. This is not where I'm going, nor is this where I'm heading. And I said, I want to find, or basically in this point was God, show me a way to go about my gifts that I can generate a career for myself. So when I came home, if I can go into that part.
Yep.
When I came home after those 60 days, your license is expunged for 7 months if you have a drug case. Mine was expunged for 7 months. And in that time, I would, spend time with family, but at the same time, I was like, oh man, I have restitution to pay. So I have to get on my grind. And one of those things with my grind, I'm a hard worker. So I was working at the restaurant business. I was working at Permanente Brothers in Monroeville, and also I was introduced, just walking around seeing what jobs I could do in the same location due to me not having a car, but I can catch the bus route. I found the car wash, auto bath house in Monroeville. And I would work in the morning at the restaurant business, and I would leave there at 3 o'clock and walk across the street, and I would wash cars. Awesome thing about washing cars at auto bath house, the halfway house from downtown would have people that are on their last end as well, working there as well. So I was able to connect with them, and we were able to be a blessing to each other because I know they're at the halfway house downtown. I just came home and were able to connect with people. Yep. So I was able to make $1 for myself because we all would get tips and connect with people and connect with people of the same cloth that we came from the same type of situation, encourage one another. And I wanted to get out the restaurant business because the restaurant business is just poisonous. You have drug addicts, different things going on. I didn't want to be in that scene or that environment. So with me, just who I am, I was able to connect with the bartender, and the bartender, I basically said, I got fed up with it, but I was grateful because I was like, God, thank you for both of my jobs, and thank you for where I'm going throughout the whole time. So I connected with the bartender, and basically I told her how I got tired of the restaurant business, and I'm looking for something that basically just allows me to just do what I do, what I love to do.
Be you, yeah.
Be me. And I remember going home that night after my second job at the car wash, and I woke up from a text message, and it was a 3-page text message. It was the young lady at the time, and she said, "Hey Donnie, I spoke to my boyfriend, and I told him your story and everything, and he said he feels as though he has the perfect position for you. He owns a car wash at a BMW dealership in the middle of the city." I said, "What's the dealership?" Me growing up in the city,
right?
The BMW on Balboa. I'm like, "Oh snap! Driving as a kid, you never even think."
Right.
Yeah. So I said, "Yeah, Jen, I'm all for it." Happened to be that next day I was off from both jobs, so I got up early. Just self-discipline and just being disciplined for being incarcerated, sharpening up my discipline. I got up early and I met her boyfriend at the time at the Sheets on 22, about 5 in the morning, and he gave me a ride down, and me and him hit it off. Mm-hmm. And he was just telling me about his business and how his company subcontracts washes cars for this dealership. And as we're pulling up the dealership, he said, "I think Tony would like you. Tony's my service director at the dealership." And I said, "No doubt, man." And I'm walking in this BMW dealership, a dealership that I always used to drive past as a kid. And I'm like, wow, I'm in a BMW dealership and I only been home almost a year. Like, I'm at a BMW dealership and I'm here. And I'm in the back And I'm sitting in his office for a couple minutes, and he walks in, and it's an African-American brother with a suit on, clean. And he sits back, and from the jump, he sat back with an open mind. And basically, I kept it real with him. Always connect with people, keep it real with them. This time I realized I was more seasoned with me keeping it real with people because my old past was gone inside the jail cell. Yeah. So me keeping it real was just more manifested, like keeping it real, this is who I am. Either you accept me or you don't. And he sat back and I told him, I said, hey, Tony, just let you know, connecting with Mr. Tony. I just came home, incarcerated. I'm a hard worker. I love people. And I love to smile. And we just connected, just one-on-one. Everything was organic, just one-on-one. He would ask me questions, things of that sort. And he tossed me a work shirt and said, you're going to start washing cars today. So Jason shook my hand, the guy that took me down there, and said, Donnie, wish you the best. And I started washing cars. I was washing cars for 2 weeks. And in that time frame, coming home from incarceration, getting readapted to the real world, there's so many things that crosses your mind for you to try to slip back up. Yep. But at the same time, it was like, stick with it. Stick with it, son. And that was the spirit of God. Son, stick with it. There was times I was vacuuming clients' cars, $100 bills there. No, don't take it. And I remember 2 weeks, man, one of the lot guys came down and said, yo, big man wants to talk to you up top. And at this time, it's just me. And my work ethic was unexplainable. I was only car washing. I was punching out 32 cars a day. I was picking up Saturdays. And basically, my work just spoke for itself. And being humble and just, soaking it in. I'm washing $100,000 cars, and it's just experience. And I'm really just soaking it in humbleness and understanding, like, God, you brought me here, and there's something here. So I go upstairs, and I'm waiting in his office again because he's handling business, which I understand now in my career. You got people, I'll be with you in a second. And he walks in, and he sat back in his chair, and he had a BMW polo over his shoulder, and he said, Donnie, man, I love your work ethic. You always come to work with a smile, and you're always on time. Wow. So one big thing always for the young fellas, always be on time, or anyone in general, always be on time. And he tossed me a polo. He said, you ain't got to wash cars no more. You could be a lot attendant. And this time I'm like, wow, a lot attendant. So being a lot attendant enabled me to connect with the people that worked at the dealership, able for me to make a name for myself, meaning, hey, Donnie's the guy that makes sure my cars are up for our guests. So I was being a lot attendant for, I would say, almost 2 years. And in that time, my favor with the management, my favor with the company in general, it blessed me that they were able to see my gifts and they trusted in me. So I was able to bring people on that I knew to the job. And I learned in the long run, you can't never vouch for someone that you never worked with, even if they're a friend, because they may let you down. So that's one of the gifts I've learned. Like, everybody you can't vouch for, even if you're a friend and you've never seen someone work or you never lived with someone, don't shoot for it. Yeah. So I was able to bring friends in. And over time after that, it gave me my leadership and start bringing out and developing my leadership more and more. And I would work 7 to 7. I mean, putting time in. So one time I remember when my boss looked at my check and he seen how much overtime I had. He said, oh, we're going to have to find more people. You're making too much overtime. And I was making money enough to pay my restitution and money to save over. Wow. So I was doing that for 2 years. And then they switched me to a different department. I was on the sales department. And with my leadership skills, I was able to be a supervisor on the sales floor as far as lot attendants. Yeah, it's a title, but the title is not going to make you. You make the title. So I was able to use my gifts within the house and refer them down at the dealership. And then I would put them on my team, passing the baton to the next. And I had this one soul that worked with me, God rest his soul, he's not with us no more. But he came home from the halfway house, we connected, and he was giving everything his all, at the dealership, but things didn't work out. Unfortunately, his life was taken. But basically, it was an opportunity for him to experience something with me as well. And as we rose together, like, bro, we're at a BMW dealership. We both just came home. He came home from the feds. I came home from, incarceration. And basically, we made a name for ourselves, our 5-man team that we had down there. Wow. And as that progressed, that was about, say, 2 more years or a year and a half. And even throughout my whole trial of being at the dealership, I still had ups and downs. There was things I did as knuckleheads, like wrecking cars and things of that sort. But every time I did it, I owned up to it. And I would learn from that experience that maybe be able to share a story with someone else or a new young guy that comes on the job and has the opportunity to say, hey, brother, if you do something out of the pocket or out of alignment, just let them know, confess up to it, own it, and move on to the next.
Donnie, I have to stop you.
Yeah.
We're going to stop this show because I want to bring you back for the next show.
Okay.
So thank you so much for being on the show. Donnie Gray, everybody. That's the time for our show. This is the Paul Spradley Show. It's available on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and everywhere podcasts are distributed. My team and I would love to come and host a training at your place of work. So please find me on LinkedIn, social media, and let's connect. Until next time, keep on caring. Yeah.